I saw Golda, which is not really a biopic about Golda Meir. It's specifically about Golda Meir's handling of the 1973 Yom Kippur War, which I am not super familiar with. This movie was pretty much my first introduction to it. I'm genuinely not well versed on a lot of early Israeli politics. All I knew about Golda Meir was that she was the first elected female prime minister. But this movie is kind of a disappointment. First off, Golda Meir is played by Helen Mirren, who is a fantastic actress, but her face is completely covered in prosthetics so that she's basically unrecognizable as Helen Mirren. And there is a couple of issues with that because, for one, Helen Mirren is not Jewish. So putting a bunch of prosthetics on her, including a larger nose, it's like Jew face. And I know Bradley Cooper was getting in trouble for that for another film. And I think Bradley Cooper was probably getting more criticism for that because it's a film that he's also directing. Whereas this film is directed by an Israeli director, Guy Nativ. So he was just like, look, it was my decision, so it's fine. So, I'm not Jewish, so I'm not one to speak over a Jew about what is or isn't acceptable Jew face, other than I noticed it and it feels weird. But this movie just kind of does feel like pro-Israeli propaganda. Like, the Palestinians are not mentioned in the movie at all. There's like an opening card that mentions the Palestinians like once, but no character mentions them in dialogue. It's just treated as like they're not there. And the conditions leading up to the Yom Kippur War are very glossed over. Like, it's just... And usually, like, the coalition force that was invading Israel during that war, they're usually just collectively referred to as Arabs. Like, they just say, oh, the Arabs are attacking. They do mention, Egypt and Syria, but in general, when they're talking about the people fighting them, they just say they're the Arabs. And we never actually see any of the fighting because all the movie is set from the perspective of Golda Meir herself. So we see her in like situation rooms and in meetings with military leaders and diplomats and stuff like that. And like Golda is kind of portrayed as like kind of one of the military masterminds behind, the defending against the invasion, but she's a civilian politician. I looked up her history. She has no military training, so it seems weird that they would put her as like, she's the one making the hard military decisions. There's even like a bit where there's a one of her generals seems to be suffering from a severe PTSD episode, and so she's like, I have to take over from him. And I have no idea the historicity behind that, but it does seem weird that they would portray her as like, oh, I'm the military leader who knows how to get it done when she has no military experience. The entire movie, like I said, it's portrayed from Golda's perspectives. We don't get any frontline action. The only time, so like the Arabs are kind of like a faceless enemy. The only time we really hear them is she's like in like a military room where they're hearing like radio chatter from the frontline forces. And it's like during a military loss, and we hear like, the Israeli forces slowly all dying, and then we hear like an Arab voice go, we have killed the Zionists. And it feels very like, the Arabs are just unequivocally the bad guys and stuff. And it never points out, because a lot of the Yom Kippur War was in large part launched by Egypt in an attempt to regain the Sinai Peninsula, which Israel had been occupying since 1956. And the movie doesn't point that out, that, the Sinai Peninsula has been part of Egypt for like 5,000 years. But this movie treats it like Egypt is invading Israel to try and take over Israeli territory. But it's like, well, no, the Sinai Peninsula was never historically part of Israel. It's always been an Egyptian territory. It's like, I think Britain had like taken it from them in like the 19th century, and then it was part of the British Palestinian territories, and then Israel like took it over in 1956. It just, I don't know, it feels weird to frame it only as, the Egyptians are invading us, when it's like, well, you guys have been in a ceasefire since the 6-Day War. You're occupying their territory. You've been occupying it for like 30 years. Liev Schreiber is in the movie playing Henry Kissinger, and when I saw the trailer, like, this is why I wanted to see the movie, because like, oh god, they're making a movie with Kissinger. I have to see it to see if they portray him as the absolute demon that he is. And unfortunately, no, he is portrayed far too sympathetically for my tastes. Henry Kissinger is, of course, one of the most evil people to ever exist. And I think the only reason he is not currently dead is because he is, in fact, Satan living among us. So for Henry Kissinger to be portrayed here mostly as kind of, at worst, like a neutral but sympathetic character, that's bad. There's like one funny moment where he goes to meet Golda Meir at her place, and she insists that he have some borscht that her housekeeper had made, and he's like, oh no, I just came from the Russians and they fed me 2 dinners in a row and my stomach is upset. And she's like, Henry, my housekeeper is a survivor. You have to eat it. That was a cute moment. In terms of the actual like story elements, I don't know. The film seems kind of uninspired, plotting. There's like one cool shot where Golda Meir is laying in bed and smoking. She smokes all throughout the movie. Golda Meir was famous for how much she smoked, but she's in bed smoking, and as she exhales the smoke, the camera kind of rises up and follows the smoke as it billows out. And then it kind of ends up resembling like a big explosion because she had just gotten out of like the military situation room where she heard all of their soldiers getting killed. I thought that was probably one of the more creative elements of the movie. But overall, this I don't know. This movie seems like it is just, in general, pro-Israeli propaganda. And Helen Mirren is giving it her 20%. And I don't know how much of that is because she doesn't feel inspired by it, or how much of it is just the makeup itself. But like, you can tell, especially because at the end of the movie, we actually see footage of the real Golda Meir. They do use a lot of archival footage in the movie. And so at the end, we see the real Golda Meir talking, and you can see how much more animated her face is than Helen Mirren's is. And that has to be, at least in part, just because of the prosthetics. Hard to get your latex covering your face to have the same range of motion as like your actual face does. I think casting Helen Mirren is just there because she's a prestigious actor. I think they should have tried to find somebody who just more generally resembled Golda Meir to play her. Just my opinion. But I wouldn't watch this movie, and it seems like reviews in general, they're not really liking it. It seems pretty subpar. Even without the political motivations behind making this movie, it just seems kind of bland. Hey, thanks for watching. I'm trying to get my channel monetized, so your view means a lot. Don't forget to toss me a like and subscribe and ring the bell. I stream every Monday and Thursday at 5 p.m. Pacific, so catch me live and join in on the convo. You can find all my socials in the description below, and thank you to all my patrons with a special shout out to Piftle Cakes and Ryan D. Your support means the world. Catch you next time.